This PowerPoint is for lessons 1.5, 1.6, and 1.7. Go ahead and complete the warm-up on your notes to begin. To keep things moving, I'm not going to give a lot of time in between, so go ahead and pause whenever you feel that you need a little more time to write something down. Our 1.5 objective is to learn to add integers, and our essential question, how do I use a number line to add integers? So let's try to use a number line first to find the sum. If we're adding -6 plus 2 on a number line, that means we would first go to our beginning number, which is -6. Adding 2 would bring us back 2 to the right, and that gets us to -4. A helpful hint: to add a positive number, move to the right. To add a negative number, move to the left. Let's try it again with -2 plus 5. First, we move from 0 to -2. Adding 5 is adding a positive, so we go 5 back to the right, and we end up at +3. Another method we could use is the cancel with plus and minus pairs to add integers. So if we start with -8 plus 3, you can see we've written out 8 negative signs and 3 positives. What we can do from there is we can go ahead and cancel any negative and positive pair. If you remember additive inverses, 1 negative, 1 positive added together is 0. Then we just look at what we have left over, which would be 5 negatives. So that leaves us with an answer of -5. Couple of notes: if the signs are the same when you're adding two numbers, you keep the sign and just simply add the numbers as they are. So 7 plus 5 is 12, -7 plus -5 is -12. If the signs are different, you're really looking for the difference between the two values, and you take the sign of what would be the larger number if all numbers were positive. So when it's 7 plus -5, it's going to be a positive number because 7 is larger than 5, and the sign of 7 is positive, and then we subtract 7 minus 5 to get 2. In the case of -7 plus 5, 7 is a larger number, and since the sign is negative, our answer is negative, and -7 plus 5 would be -2. So you can use any method that you choose. You can cancel plus and minus signs, you could use a number line, or if you can use the method of looking at the larger number, determining the sign, and adding or subtracting, go ahead. 1 plus -2, the 2 is a negative, and that's the larger number, so our answer will be negative, and the difference between 1 and 2 is 1, so we get an answer of -1. Example B, -8 plus 5. 8 is the larger number, and it's negative, so we'll have a negative number for an answer. 8 minus 5 is 3, so we end up with -3. Here we have two negatives, same as adding two positives, just make sure the sign is negative, so we have -6. Let's look at an example from a bank account. Mika opened a new bank account. Find her account balance after the first 4 transactions listed below. Deposit means you're putting money in, so that's a positive investment. Withdrawal means you're taking money out, so that would be a negative. So if we list this out, we have 200 plus 20 plus -166 plus -38. We can combine using the associative property 200 plus 20 and combine our -166 plus -38. So we get 220 plus a -204, which is really taking 220 minus 204. So she has a positive $16 left in her bank account. To finish up section 1.5, write down a few tricks you will use to remember to add integers. Pause if you need more time. Lesson 1.6, objective, learn to subtract integers. Essential question, how do I use a number line to subtract integers? Subtracting a lesser number from a greater number is the same as finding out how far apart the two numbers are on a number line. Subtracting an integer is the same as adding its opposite. So look at the two examples that we have. 3 minus 7 could also be rewritten as 3 plus negative 7. And 5 minus negative 8 is the same as 5 plus 8. So we turned a negative 7 into an addition problem, and minus a negative became plus a positive. Subtracting an integer is the same as adding its opposite. So let's try one. Negative 1 minus 6. Looking at the number line, you can see from 0 we go to negative 1. We go left another 6 spots, and we end up at negative 7. A few more examples to look at. Subtracting an integer is the same as adding its opposite. 3 minus 6 is the same as 3 plus negative 6. Negative 9 minus a negative 4 is negative 9 plus 4. Go ahead and create your own subtraction problem. You must have one negative number and rewrite it using addition. Pause if you need more time. So let's subtract. Negative 7 minus 4. That's the same idea as adding a negative 4. Oh, well now we're just adding two negative numbers. So 7 plus 4 is 11. We keep it negative, so negative 11 is the final answer. 8 minus a negative 5. I notice on here, oh, minus a negative. Okay, one quick thing we can do is make this one big plus sign, so it becomes 8 plus 5. And 8 plus 5 would give us positive 13. How about a negative 6 minus a negative 3? Okay, here's another one. Make it a big plus sign so that it's negative 6 plus 3. Think about your adding rules, that you need to take the sign of the larger number, which is 6, so it'll be negative. Subtract 6 minus 3, you get an answer of negative 3. We can do the same thing for evaluating, where we substitute a number in. Again, remember, subtracting an integer is the same as adding its opposite. So when we substitute negative 6 in, pay attention, because we put the whole number in place of j, and we keep the sign out front. So the first thing that happens is we get 8 minus a negative 6, which we turn into a plus sign. So it's 8 plus 6, and that equals 14. Evaluate again. Now we're substituting negative 2 into the front of the problem. Negative 2 minus 6 is the same as negative 2 plus negative 6. Adding two negatives stays negative, we get negative 8. Quick write, what trick will you use to remember how to subtract integers? This is the end of section 1.6. Pause as you write down your answer. And section 1.7, the objective, learn to multiply and divide integers. Essential question, what are the rules for multiplying and dividing integers? Here they are. If the signs are the same, the sign of the answer is positive. If the signs are different, the sign of the answer is negative. A little more straightforward than adding and subtracting. It's kind of nice if you can remember those two rules. You know your multiplication facts already, you've got it. Let's break it down a little further. Okay, if we're looking at products, meaning we're multiplying, if both numbers, both factors are positive, our answer is positive. And if our example is 3 times 5, our answer is 15. If we have one negative, it does not matter which one, we get a negative answer. And if both are negative, we're back to the positives. Same rules apply for division. Both positive, you get a positive number. One negative, you get a negative number. Both negatives, you get a positive number. So pay attention to how many negatives you have. This is only for when we have two numbers. If we were to expand how many numbers we had, we'd be looking at Odd number of negatives is negative, even number of negatives is positive. So a negative times a positive we know is negative. 6 times 4 is 24, so we get an answer of negative 24. Example B, we have two negatives that will make a positive. 8 times 5 is 40. Division, same idea. One negative is a negative answer. 18 divided by 2 would be 9, so negative 9. Example D, two negatives make a positive. 25 divided by 5 is 5. One last step, now we're going to put together what we've been doing in all three lessons. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Remember, order of operations is important. So in example A, 3 parentheses negative 6 minus 12, you can see the first step is that we've taken minus 12 and turned it into plus negative 12. So inside the parentheses we are adding two negatives, which will leave us with a negative 18. Last step is to multiply. We have one negative times one positive, so we have a negative, and 18 times 3 is 54, so we get negative 54. Second example, negative 3 plus 6. Okay, we're adding a negative and a positive, so we're looking at the difference between the two. 6 is the larger number, so that's positive answer. The difference between between 3 and 6 is 3, so we get an answer of 3. Then we multiply negative 2 times 3 to get a negative 6. Finish up with your quick write. How will you remember the rules for multiplying and dividing integers? Again, pause if you need more time. When you're all finished, make sure your Cornell notes are filled out completely. Review your notes and complete the summary before class. Come prepared to take a formative, non-graded lesson quiz on how well you understood the material.